The following is an in-depth story analysis. If you haven't seen Dexter or Dexter New Blood, you may want to before watching this video.
It's been a long time. But if I'm gonna do this, I need to do it right.
Yeah, Dexter, you wouldn't want to drop the ball. So Dexter's back, to give us all closure. After 3 seasons of annihilating our goodwill, it's been almost a decade since we last met up with our favorite lumberjack and former bloodspatter analyst. As the miniseries/reboot went into production, I think there were 3 questions on everybody's mind. What's the story gonna be? How is it gonna end? And will they fuck it up? I'll get to the first 2 questions in depth, but to be curt, the answer to the third question is yes. I'm relieved they brought the story of Dexter Morgan to a definitive end, especially since they were teasing they might stretch this out into multiple seasons before the finale. At the same time, if you're just interested in seeing how they end it, you can skip the whole season and just watch the finale and you'll pretty much miss nothing. Not that there weren't good ideas and exciting moments as the season went on, just that the execution was a misfire. I'd say in general, the entire season felt like a first draft. It reminded me a lot of season 3 with Dexter's BFF Miguel Prado. Great themes on paper, but constant missed opportunities that are staring the audience in the face. Well, if Dexter New Blood didn't give you closure, that's what I'm here for. Actually, did anybody even watch this? I think everyone was too busy being disappointed by Cowboy Bebop.
You'll never know true power until you've tasted the testicles of a man who's wronged you.
No, do you know what you just said?
It
Do you have
included.
any idea what you just read?
This says it
No, did you have any idea what you just read?
It's a day of big disappointments for all of us, but Bebop is a story for another day. Let's talk about Dexter New Blood.
Who the fuck are you?
I'm Fat Dexter.
What the fuck? Shit, I clicked the wrong video. Dexter New Blood sees Dexter living under an assumed name in the small town of Iron Lake, plugging away day to day in an honest job at a hunting supply store, in a long-term relationship with Town Sheriff Angela, and consoled by the ghostly vision of Deb, who congratulates him on his many years of murdering sobriety. When rich scumbag Matt Caldwell comes to town with a backstory of causing a boat crash that killed a handful of people, Dexter is ultimately unable to resist the temptation and butchers the boy in a crime of passion. At the same time as Dexter relapsing, Harrison makes his way into town, looking to connect with his vanished father, because Hannah is dead!
I found it when she died.
Harrison's presence threatens to blow Dexter's cover, and on top of that, Dexter becomes increasingly suspicious that his son may share his own dark urges. The show kind of tricks you into thinking Dexter New Blood is going to be wildly different in structure from the seasons that came before. Dexter is rusty and lacking the tools he had access to in Miami, such as a convenient ocean dumping ground, police databases, and the Miami Metro evidence lockup. The first 3 episodes are basically Dexter New Fargo. Our lead commits a crime of passion in the premiere and then spends the rest of the episodes covering his tracks, with each stage in the cover-up getting sloppier and more desperate.
Little Fargo, don't you think?
I wish, Dexter. Unfortunately, the show ditches the toned-down Dexter out of his element plotline after a few episodes and starts falling back into bad habits, chief among them being the always unwelcome ghost mentor that harangues Dexter in times of crisis. I made no secret of my contempt for Ghost Harry in the original series, a feature notably absent from the first 2 seasons, which factors into why those 2 seasons were some of the best. Well, now we've got Ghost Deb, and wrapping my head around what exactly she is and what her function in the story is supposed to be is gonna make me have a heart attack. Jennifer Carpenter is clearly having a fun time in the role, and I'm not going to bitch about them retconning her "I just want you to be happy" speech from the finale by now having her insist that he remain miserable and alone. Lord knows they retconned Deb's beliefs and motivations a dozen times over the show's original run, also because that final season absolutely wrecked her character and that speech made no earthly sense. My complaint, or rather question, is this. What is Ghost Deb? Ghost Deb can't be a projection of Dexter's memories of his sister. She's saying things Deb would never say. Specifically, her incorporeal form demanding Dexter abandon Harrison, the exact reverse opposite of her opinion in the OG series. At first I thought maybe she was a representation of Dexter's guilt, like Dexter is lying to himself, but Ghost Deb shows up to shed light on harsh reality and make Dexter face truths he doesn't want to face. But that doesn't work either. There's an episode where Harrison claims he put a potential school shooter in the hospital to save his classmates, then Dexter analyzes the scene of the attack and realizes Harrison staged the whole thing. Harrison just wanted an excuse use to hurt someone. If Deb is supposed to be a manifestation of Dexter's guilt, you'd think he'd be trying to turn a blind eye to the truth, and Deb would be the one forcing him to recognize that his son shares his violent urges. Instead, it's the opposite. Deb wants to turn a blind eye, and Dexter is the one insisting the truth must out.
You are fucking crazy.
Harrison's lying.
You can't handle the fact that Harrison is a hero.
Then there's a one-off episode where Dexter decides to kill a drug dealer who gave Harrison pills laced with fentanyl. Dexter killing Matt in the premiere was a heat-of-the-moment crime of passion, but still one Ghost Deb grilled him over. Now we have Dexter not only meticulously plotting a kill ritual in cold blood, but also racing to beat the cops to the target. This is Dexter's first planned kill in a decade, not one even born of necessity since the Fuzz is on their way to snatch the guy. It should be a huge occasion and a cause for confrontation between him and his dearly departed moral compass. Instead, Ghost Deb doesn't even comment on it. But forget Ghost Deb's motivations, let's talk about Harrison's. I'm curious what motivated Harrison to track down his father in the first place. Not in New Blood's premiere, mind you, because it's pretty self-explanatory at that point. Dad supposedly died, then you find out 10 years later he's still alive, so you track him down to get answers and possibly reclaim some father-son connection. But then immediately next episode, Harrison becomes a standoffish brat who seems to have come to Iron Lake just so he could live in his father's house for free and ignore the shit out of him as a form of passive-aggressive payback for abandoning him. Harrison pretty much remains that way until the final 2 episodes. I understand the circumstances of Dexter's disappearance and the tribulations he indirectly put Harrison through are going to lead to some resentment, but the audience would hope there would be a genuine relationship between the two in spite of it. Harrison shows up in Iron Lake and wants nothing to do with Dexter, and Dexter really only seems to give a shit about the kid when he's in imminent danger. When it became like a joke in the final few seasons how little Dexter gave a shit about baby Harrison, Dexter New Blood really needed to do some more groundwork on the father-son dynamic, especially when that is ostensibly the core theme of the season. Now, you probably thought Harrison came to Iron Lake to seek guidance from Dexter on how to handle his dark urges. That seems like a very natural and compelling direction for the story to go. Spoilers for the TV show The Americans, which I recently covered, so if you haven't seen it, skip to this time code. See, I'm learning. That show explores a similar dynamic to what I just described between the Jennings parents and their daughter Paige. They're letting her peek behind the curtain of their secret lives little by little, but withholding the most damning secrets that would scare their daughter away. There were a couple execution issues I had, but for the most part it worked like gangbusters. Complicated character dynamics as they spin their web of half-truths, and explosive drama when terrible realities come to light.
You lie about everything.
Hey,
how many times? How many men? Were you doing this when I was a baby? You're a whore. Does Dad know he married a whore?
New Blood saw that arc and said, how about if we crammed all 3 seasons of that into 2 episodes? God, it is a frustrating watch. Dexter just cannot spit it out. It's like a bad rom-com. These characters sat down and talked to each other for 5 minutes. They could connect, trust each other, and Dexter could help Harrison realize he's not all alone with his violent urges. There's this big scene where Harrison reveals he remembers the night his mother died. He has violent urges because of it, and he fantasizes about killing the Trinity Killer himself. And you're like, okay, Dexter New Blood, you put this shit off for 7 episodes. There's only 3 episodes left of Dexter ever. You have to pull the trigger on this now, or you are literally going to run out of time to do this character work. Then Dexter lets Harrison just walk away.
You have got to be kidding me!
So many directions this could have taken if they incorporated Dexter and Harrison sharing a dark passenger all season. Maybe Dexter opens with, hey, I know you're traumatized by the Trinity Killer, so I've got a confession. I killed his ass. That seems like a pretty good way to start things off. Harrison is likely to be amenable to that, and you can parlay that into informing Harrison of other vigilante killings you've done to jerks like Trinity. Spend the mid-season doing Harrison onboarding and really develop that they have a connection beyond just the biological. There's also plenty of ways to write a rift between the two in the 3rd act, so Harrison still winds up in Kurt's death trap in episode 8. Maybe Harrison is like his grandpa Ghost Dad, all gung-ho about butchering baddies in theory, but the gross reality of the process leaves him horrified. Or if you don't want to rehash that, how about he puts 2 and 2 together and realizes Dexter didn't kill Trinity as revenge for Rita? Rita only got killed because Dexter put her in Trinity's crosshairs. Fuck you, Dexter! Your sick crusade is the reason my mom died. I'm gonna go confide in that cool old guy Kurt since you've betrayed my trust. Instead, they saved that for the final confrontation. Or hell, make Harrison learn the truth about Hannah. You claim you kill killers, but you let that psycho poisoner go and shipped me to Argentina with her? I was starting to believe in the code, but there's no code at all. You're a fraud. I'm gonna go do shots with Kurt because I'm so disillusioned. Have Harrison really take his old man to task, you know, something organic, something rooted in Dexter's history, drawing on Dexter's own flaws that the original series so frequently glossed over. Just do something! Instead, in the final 2 episodes, they just burn through all of it at ludicrous speed. As predicted, not nearly enough time to cover all this potentially juicy material. Dexter lies about only threatening his victims, not killing. Why even bother at this point? Harrison's gonna watch you chop up a body by the end of this very episode, by necessity of the plot. What a pointless lie.
So you're kind of like Batman or something.
Instead of doing the Harrison and Dexter show for the middle of the season, the two split off into storylines that barely overlap, with Harrison spending most of the season on misadventures at the local high school. Harrison frames a kid as a school shooter so he'll have an excuse to stab him. He ODs on laced pills so Dexter will have an excuse to stab someone else. He brutalizes a wrestling opponent when his dark passenger takes over, and he hooks up with the adopted daughter of Dexter's girlfriend Angela. What is it with fucking Dexter and creepy, it's okay because they're adopted sexual dynamics?
Things certainly weren't normal when you and I were on track to becoming brother and sister.
They also hook up right after he sneaks up to her window and confesses to her that he has weird, murderous urges. My guy's been taking dating advice from Anakin Skywalker. Let me double back to that whole ODs on laced pills story. New Blood is clearly going for this whole, we're real kids in 2020's America, and we've got real issues to deal with, but it's so over the top it's comical. It's been 10 years since I graduated high school, so I may be a bit out of touch, but this is ridiculous. Jesse Pinkman threw calmer house parties. Super Hans threw calmer house parties.
If that party is too much for Hans, the crack-addled maniac, I'm pretty confident it'll be too much for me.
Meanwhile, Dexter himself spends the whole season in a reactive manner. Forget Harrison and Ghost Deb, I spent most of the season wondering what the hell Dexter's motivation was. At first I figured Dexter was pretty much content with his new life, and his motivation would be maintaining it as things spiral out of his control. But as the season goes on and Dexter starts acting increasingly recklessly just so he can go killing again, I wonder how much of it was a sham and if he's spent the last decade bored out of his mind. Does he have any real feelings for Angela, or is she just the best way to keep his eye on local law enforcement? Even with Angela in his life, he claims to be lonely, implying that connecting with Harrison is the only sort of connection that will matter to him. But he's really half-assing this whole connection with Harrison thing. Accuse Harrison of doing something sinister over the breakfast table. Harrison scoffs, grabs his coat, and storms out. Okay, that's all the Dexter and Harrison interaction you get this episode. Tune in next week where they'll do the same song and dance again. And why is he concerned about Harrison possibly having a dark passenger? Is it because he hates having his own dark passenger and doesn't want his son to suffer from it? Because the show has always been back and forth on if Dexter relishes being different or wishes he was normal. Is it because it just puts him at risk of discovery? Does he feel a moral duty to stop his son from becoming like him? Or is he just worried his son will lose control and wind up on his table? I never thought I'd live to see the day where I'm begging Dexter to tell me what he's thinking, but here we are. I guess let's just go through the Dexter plots this season. The premiere offers up scumbag Matt Caldwell, who caused a boat crash that resulted in 5 dead. Dexter assaults him when he pisses him off and basically goes, screw it, let's finish this my way. After years on the bench, his cover-up is sloppy and he has to scramble to find a way to get rid of the body. I actually really enjoyed this whole Dexter behind the 8-ball arc in the first 3 episodes. It harkens back to season 2, staying one step ahead of the cops while at the same time juggling an unexpected conflict in your personal life that threatens to unmask you. Fun arc, but with a lazy conclusion. Inexplicably, he does not feed the corpse to a bear that startles him at a cave entrance, a manner of disposal that would also imply accidental death, instead deciding to incinerate it at a previously unmentioned foundry, which feels like a massive hand wave. Angela discovers that he's really Dexter Morgan, and he teams up with her to investigate Matt's father, Kurt Caldwell, who they suspect of killing runaway girls in the area. More on Kurt later. First, I'm going to look at Angela and her little road trip to New York, with everyone's least favorite new character, podcaster Molly Park.
A rich, white, entitled, cisgender guy illegally shoots a rare white buck on reservation land and then up and disappears?
Kurt wants to lead the hunt for his missing son away from his burial ground, lest the local PD stumble on a body, so he feigns Matt's reappearance at a New York hotel. There just so happens to be a conference happening in New York as well, and Oh my god, a police conference. It has to be. Yes, Masuka's back! Oh, it's Angel. I mean, hey, I'm sure David Zayas is happy to be back, and it's not like it's his fault his character drew the short straw and had the worst side plot basically every season, but it's baffling to me that this isn't Masuka. Masuka loved giving conferences. He had that whole storyline in season 3 where he tried to change his image when none of his colleagues attended. He also has a lot more credibility, and it's easier for these writers to make a conference on some scientific mumbo-jumbo than it is to write compelling investigative stuff. Angel is out here giving a lecture on if there's a connection between victims. Investigate that. Gee, hope everyone's taking notes. Then he has a scene at the bar where he and Angela talk cases. He's making awkward passes at her, and I'm like, this has Masuka written all over it. Then he unwittingly outs Dexter having faked his death when he relays the plot of Remember the Monsters. It takes Angel a moment to remember Harrison's name, for dramatic purposes of course, but all I could think was, didn't Harrison basically live with you for 2 years? This is also an unnecessary plot point anyways, since Harrison spills the beans on Dexter's fake name while high off his tits. Also, if it were Masuka, we'd have a bit of comic relief injected into the season, which might have spared us another scene from the comic relief character we actually got stuck with. Molly Park, host of the true crime podcast Marry Fucking Kill.
Crawling in a pool of his mother's blood. How fucked up is that kid now?
Yeah, true crime podcasters don't talk like that. I mean, I guess some might, but none I've ever heard of. They generally have some degree of respect for the victims, and they tend to be heavily focused on psychoanalysis of their subjects, not just the nitty-gritty of what they did and how they were caught. Molly Park just recaps summaries of each villain. Incorrectly, I might add.
The police are finally hip to his MO. But of course, they don't get it together fast enough to stop him from one final cut.
As far as the world knows, Trinity's wife and daughter were his final victims. You might argue they were in witness protection, but I wouldn't, because you don't need witness protection when you're dead. If we're trying to build Molly's credibility as a capable investigator, it would have been a nice touch to have her put some of these pieces together herself, and maybe even put together that Trinity's son could possibly be a suspect.
His victims were usually criminals who'd gotten away with it, and it's why Miami Metro Homicide came to believe the butcher was one of their own.
No, it wasn't. They figured out it was someone in law enforcement because the Bay Harbor Butcher released a deliberately misleading manifesto. I can't believe they actually made full-length versions of these for fans to listen to. I could barely sit through the clips on the show. It's a shame these podcasts are kiddie pool shallow effin' and jeffin' swear fests. Some sort of defictionalized real-life podcast taking a look at the psychosis of the fictional villains of Dexter could have been a playful and fun companion piece. Speaking of fictional villains, Kurt Caldwell.
You ruin everything!
Kurt Caldwell is our big bad this season, and I must admit I was intrigued by him at the beginning of the series. Clancy Brown turns in a consistently interesting performance, always keeping you guessing whether he's a jerk with a heart, a rage monster, a doddering old fool, or a manipulative criminal mastermind. Unfortunately, he isn't written terribly interesting. At first he seems like something fresh in the Dexter universe. He's a powerful guy with a wealth of resources, both sinister and benign, who has Dexter in his crosshairs after a family member winds up murdered. Except, unlike Miguel Prado, instead of being Dexter's buddy, the two are going to go to war. There's a scene after Dexter burns Matt's corpse where he spots Kurt outside the bar, drinking and celebrating and obviously lying to Dexter.
Must have been amazing to hear his voice. Yeah, well, I did more than hear him. We FaceTime.
I was hooked at this point. What the hell is up with this guy? Is he toying with Dexter? Is he glad his son died? Does he have his own motive for the cover-up? Anything could happen. And then in the next episode, we learn he's a serial killer, and the exact same thing that happened every other season happens again. Whew, good. Oh, what a relief. Things were almost starting to get tense there, but now I know exactly what to expect. You know what I mean. Serial killer with a bizarre kill ritual and a signature song. The Ice Truck Killer had Born Free, Trinity had Venus, Brain Surgeon had Make Your Own Kind of Music, and now Kurt's got Runaway. Performance-wise, Kurt and Ernie is among the best villains of the series, but when it comes to ritual and motivation, Kurt's D tier. I know the Freudian excuses of each Dexter villain have never been true to life compared to the origins of actual serial killers, but a lot made twisted sense and you could sort of understand it. If what happened to Trinity happened to me, I'd probably be out of my goddamn mind too. I understood how a hothead like Miguel would see Dexter's secret life as an opportunity to shape the law in his image. Meanwhile, Kurt Caldwell B. Cladwell's motive is thus. As a child, he watched his dad beat up hookers. One night he tried to help a runaway get out of town before she met a similar fate. When she started running back to town, he shot her. Okay. Now he abducts runaways, keeps them locked in a cabin, then lets them go after a few days and shoots them as they run through the woods. On the kill table, Kurt confirms what I had suspected. He's snatching these women up so he can save them from the cruelties of the outside world, which was sort of Travis Marshall's motive too. It doesn't click though. If he's trying to protect them, what's with the ominous "you're already dead" note next to his security camera? Why isn't he keeping these women locked up for eternity and only killing them when he views them as ungrateful? That would be a hell of a lot creepier, at least to me. Stay here in my bunker forever, my precious. It's too dangerous for you out there. Then the camera pans out in his monitor, and we see he's got like 4 women captive all at once, all in their own rooms, stakes raised, creepy ritual established, and then anytime one slips his grasp, that's when he goes to plan B and tracks him through the woods. They didn't do that though. It's a shame this whole creepy "I captured you to protect you" thing doesn't really work here, because I know it can work really well. Just watch 10 Cloverfield Lane. Of course, we just end up going through the same beats as every season. Dexter is kidnapped, but Houdini's his way to freedom, in record time I might add, rescues a family member from mortal peril. The villain makes a final, ill-conceived attempt on Dexter's life that fails spectacularly, then is unceremoniously drugged and butchered after a brief motive rant. I get what the writers were thinking. Dexter's been off the air for so long, people are going to want us to play the hits. And I don't know, maybe a lot of people did want this, but I sure didn't. Usually reboots or revivals will do the play the hits thing if the last entries did some sort of weird, awkward bullshit that deviated from what people liked about the original, but that's not Dexter. Dexter has always been playing the hits. Aside from season 2, the show was nothing but the hits. Like a guy playing a song on a jukebox over and over at a diner until you're sick and tired of it. I assumed this revival was being made because we like Dexter, the character. I was excited to see him in a new environment, facing new obstacles, rusty and without the resources he had in his hometown, not doing the same plot again. Why did Kurt need to be a serial killer at all? Maybe he'd even be a more sympathetic figure, which could tie into the ending they went with. Sure, Matt was a scumbag and a killer, but Kurt Honda is a grieving father, and when he sees his son's killer shacking up with the police chief, he takes matters into his own hands. Maybe even takes it too far, but there could still be that moral ambiguity of Dexter ultimately being responsible for driving the guy off the deep end. I guess I just answered my own question though. Kurt had to be a serial killer because Dexter the show hasn't been about responsibility or moral ambiguity ever since they blew up Dokes in season 2. Dexter kills Miguel's brother in self-defense. Oh man, he feels so bad about it. Oh wait, it turns out his brother was like this nasty, nasty drug dealer. Okay, I feel better now. Oh man, I gotta kill Kurt. I feel so bad, but there's nothing I can do. He figured out I killed his son. He's a loose end. Oh, he's just a serial killer.
Titanium doesn't melt.
Yeah, neither do bones, but nobody told the writers how science works. It's a cold-hearted bitch with a 14-inch strap-on. Also, this was the funniest part of the season. Not quite Doomsday Killer painting funny, but pretty good. After learning Matt's cremation left titanium screws behind, Dexter walks out to his car and Googles what titanium screws are. Fuck off. Someone who doesn't need to Google what titanium screws are is Angela the Sheriff, who picks up Dexter for the murder of Matt Caldwell and also connects him to the Bay Harbor Butcher case, leading us into the finale.
Titanium doesn't melt.
You fucking got that.
I was on pins and needles throughout the finale because I was worried they were gonna fuck it up by trying to turn New Blood into a multi-season affair. Maybe that would have justified how little relationship work they did with Harrison and Dexter this season, but at the same time, boy would that have sucked. I was not on pins and needles because I actually wondered what would happen next. In fact, once you know this is the end-all, be-all, very really final episode of Dexter, the story practically writes itself. Dexter is going to escape confinement and Harrison is going to be the one to kill him, just like everyone predicted all season. Got it. I was pleased that Coach Logan became a casualty of Dexter's escape. I think this was handled very well. Dexter finally kills an innocent person and actually has to face consequences for it. Genuine, personal consequences that don't get minimized or swept under the rug. Boy, was I fucking shocked to see that. I think the moment could have had a lot more weight though if we saw the relationship between Harrison and Logan. I know he's Harrison's coach on the wrestling team, and I know Logan was out for blood when Harrison got slipped a Mickey, but if memory serves, the two only interact in one scene. Show me Harrison looks up to Logan, don't tell me.
I've been like a father to you. Be a son to me now.
I have a father. His name was Coach Logan. What? Harrison's kind of a slut when it comes to mentor figures. He goes through 3 in 3 episodes, although I guess that's fitting for a child who was abandoned by his father. Whatever. It could have worked if it wasn't rushed. And that statement really sums up my thoughts on the whole finale, which is titled Sins of the Father, but should be titled Sins of Wasting 9 episodes on a one-off villain and not setting up any of these payoffs. Angela confronting Dexter is captivating because both Michael C. Hall and Julia Jones are spectacular, and because an actual police agency is investigating Dexter as opposed to a lone rogue officer. High-stakes stuff, but it could have been a lot juicier if I bought the relationship between Dexter and Angela at all. It's not the worst chemistry I've seen in a TV show, but it's certainly not the best. The characters have been on the outs all season, and while I thought Angela was a fresh and interesting character in the premiere, her characterization is immediately sidelined for 90% of the season as she's forced to play straight man to Molly Park's zany antics, instead of being fleshed out herself.
It's called Mary fucking Kill. Subscribe.
Hey, shut up! Shut the fuck up!
Dexter is outed as a Bay Harbor butcher, Harrison shoots Dexter, and Angela agrees to take the blame as Harrison rides off into the sunset, presumably to become a lumberjack. So that's Dexter New Blood. It's fine. I'm sure the ending will be divisive, in stark contrast to Remember the Monsters, which united us all in mutual hatred. If you got more out of this season than I did, sorry I spent the last half hour just trashing this thing. These really are just my opinions at the end of the day. I'm not the arbiter of what is or isn't good. Except in my original series retrospective. All those takes were right. In that retrospective, I said Dexter was a good show with occasional glimpses of a great show. Dexter New Blood is a frustrating show, but with glimpses of a good one. It certainly has its moments, and most of my viewers probably haven't rewatched the 3 bad seasons since they first aired. So when it harkens back to the good old days, you'll probably read it less cynical than I did. But all I could think in the finale was, Angela's calling Angel Batista to Iron Lake to confront Dexter. Will Angel finally break the curse of having side plots that never go anywhere? Hilariously, Angel never makes it to Iron Lake on screen, so the answer is no. Not only that, but Angela agrees to take the fall for Harrison and stages Dexter's death as a police shooting. Miami Metro Homicide is going to arrive on the scene and get hoodwinked into thinking a killing in cold blood is actually a justified police shooting. Again. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
What are you gonna do, Mr. Policeman? You gonna shoot me in my own club?